Hey class, it's Denny D. You all know me. Listen, I'm coming to you live from what I call the dissertation dungeon. It's the dark room in my home where I famously and truthfully go to type and cry. Listen, I thought I would present my reimagination teaching piece to you in this creative way. I think it's a little bit of fun. You'll get to know a little bit of my interests and my things and quirks, and you get to be nosy and see where I live. And you get to venture and ride with me. This is take 10. I got to get this right because I'm tired and I want to go to sleep. So with that being said, I'm going to ebb with me, flow with me. I'm not editing anything, so you're going for the ride. On today's episode of Leadership Educator Podcast with your host, Denny D. That's me. Listen, let me give you a little bit of background. Leadership Educator, the podcast, is something I've always wanted to do. This is like the third time that anybody has ever seen me actually talk and actually send it out. So it's a little nerve-wracking, frightening, vulnerable, and all. But I've always kind of had this interest. I love podcasts, as I told you yesterday. And I who has the time, right? Struggling EDI, racial equity administrator by day, struggling, crying doctoral student by night. Podcast to come in the future, but here we are. But more so, the title or the reference of me as a leadership educator, that's a personal title that I've kind of taken on in the last year or so. I did not realize I was a leadership educator until I left a role this last year. For the last 7 or so years, I was in the student activities office, managing leadership programs, and I was merely the student government advisor. I'm just trying to get the kids to do the things, right? But in the year that I stepped away, I was really shocked and just surprised. I would get all of these calls from these colleagues, friends, other co-workers. Hey, can I call you to get some advice on how you would manage this situation? Or, hey, when you were like doing the things over here with the students, how did you do that? Or more so, hey, I have employees that I need help. Coaching and like how did you like motivate them to get to do the things that you need them to do, and then all those for sure calls like, hey, my supervisor's trash, how does that work? A lot of this also stems from I've had some trashy supervisors as well. We've all had them, and so I've always wanted to be that supervisor, that manager, that leader that I wish I had at that time. And so how do I be mindful of that in my work and make sure that I'm being a good halfway decent manager, leader, supervisor, but also really trying to build up and share knowledge with our future crop of leaders, managers, employees, supervisors. Hey, you want my wonderful job? Great. Here are the keys to the castle. Let me show you how to get into the door. It's kind of been my approach, and so I think I was kind of shocked and amazed and blessed and honored that folks felt comfortable enough to reach out to me with some of their stories or their sagas or their issues. And I'm like, girl, let's have tea. I'll tell you all about it. And so that's been great. So again, I've been answering that call, and I'm trying to answer the call of this assignment to, define my leadership, define my teaching definition, and I'm kind of doing it through the context of this leadership lens. So with that, my teaching definition that I wrote down that I think is pretty good, that I'm going to tell you is a teacher. To me, is someone who creates a learning environment anywhere. It doesn't have to be the four walls of a classroom. Obviously, I'm in a basement on a mic, and we're hitting record. I think podcast might be the future, but that's for another day. Podcast teaching might be the new classroom, but that's for another day. Who can facilitate conversations, make connections, challenge thoughts, and sparks interest in topics. And so I think those are my definition or my vantage point of what teaching is all about and what being a teacher is about. Skills or characteristics that I know that I do on a daily basis, and I'm not necessarily in a classroom. I know I inform, I know I influence, I know I facilitate a whole lot, I know I develop skills, I know I motivate others to learn. I'm going to go back to develop skills. I do really try my best to bring the skills and strengths out of people. I know that folks come to me and they really want an answer, and I know I can give them an answer, but depending on, their background or who or what they are, aka our newer professionals or even our grad students, I don't always give them the right answer right away. How do I process with them and kind of help them get to the answer on their own or show the work, And again, sometimes that's cruel, and I think about it sometimes, but also, hey, it was a training lesson, and I'm not always going to be here because I'm going to hit that lotto and get about out of here. But again, develop those skills that folks can find the answer, reach the answer on their own. But again, how you do that in a loving, caring, supportive, nurturing, scaffolding kind of way. And then I also know absolutely I get on people's last nerves, and I do think that's a part of the teaching experience and the teacher in me. I know I have a small fan club, but I got a big club of people who are not on anything Dennis is talking about on a good day. And that's usually because I'm speaking up for what is right, and a lot of people want to do what is wrong. So go equity, go inclusion on a Friday, okay? All that to say, again, I think we have a lot of work to do in building up our next generation of students, of our next generation of leaders, our next generation of managers, supervisors. Like, don't be bad. Let's be good. And so I think I bring that lens in the world of leadership education. For those of you who don't know, we all have, like, you know, the godfathers of, like, leadership, aka these are the John C. Maxwell's, the Sean Coveys, the Stephen Covey's. Sean is the son. We have the Bowman and Deal. That's that book right there. Reframing Organizations, the 4 frameworks, blah blah blah. That thing. The Patrick Lencioni series, which is actually a really good series. But all of these guys, white men in particular, they don't ever really mention, if not ever, anything around race, anything around diversity, anything around inclusion. I'm like, guys, y'all are the godfathers of leadership. You know, people look up to you, the folks who are still living, and you haven't said anything yet. I think that's where I come in, again, as I try to figure out what is leadership and how does that work, and why do anyone look like me? And so I think that's where I come in, and I try to be the intersection of all that. When I think, and again, what inspired today's recording was I was staring at the bookshelf like, what in the hell am I going to talk about / write about? And so I was staring into the abyss looking at these books, and then I have the bookshelf that you can see here. I have a bookshelf upstairs. I have way too many books. It's a problem. But here we are. And so in the staring into the abyss, I was like, oh, wait, you know, I have a good friend, Stacey Abrams, Leading from the Outside, which I think is a phenomenal leadership book. It's definitely a autobiography memoir, but when you read it and learn, you know, and you know of the Stacey Abrams story, it's all a leadership lesson in that. How you rise to the top, a very public rise to the top. And I wouldn't necessarily say a fall, but we all know she ran for the state of Georgia governor and did not get it. And people gonna vote the way it's gonna vote, and we got racism and more and voter suppression to really talk about. But it's a really great leadership book that I also got a lot of flack for. But again, I can prove that it's leadership in this. So take that. Again, other books that are on the bookshelf, Just Mercy, The Light Ring is Not Lighting, Just Mercy, the Brian Stevenson story. Again, the story of the criminal justice system on black men and how this is all trash. There's leadership in that, overcoming obstacles and more, right? Everybody's favorite auntie Tabitha with Feeding the Soul, boundaries, joy, love, and how to just do this right. And what are we doing to feed our soul as leaders and managers, right? Another favorite one that got me through the pandemic, Compassionate Leadership, how to do hard things in a human way. Really had to manage my supervisors and manage up is another skill, right? But hey, it's a whole pandemic outside. Y'all better be nice because people quitting. And we just don't care. And then again, when we talk about change management and how to do that and try to do it during a very difficult time, if you ask me, Professor Barack Obama is the professor and the king on that. Like, Change Management 101 is Barack, who just happens to be one of the nation's great presidents. So again, these are just different ways that I've nerded out, and you can see how I nerd and have my books about leadership education. But more importantly, what I try to foster with, I think, I'm getting to that age number, that point in my career where I actually have mentees, and that's frightening and scary. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm going to conferences trying to see my mentors and cool people that I look up, like, oh my God, I just want to breathe your air. And then here's these troves of mentees like, Dennis, oh my gosh, you're here. And I'm like, no, I got to be a good role model, say something halfway decent. And again, you're just trying to also just navigate grad school, navigate being new professionals, navigate being new directors, or hey, I think my boss hates me. Oh yeah, let's sit down and talk about that. I can tell you about that, child. Been there, done that. So again, it's a blessing. It's an honor that I can share so much. I have so much lived experience and like work experience. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I am be the change that I want to be, right? So again, just trying to infuse some of the intersections of race, class, theory into this world of leadership, into this world of like sometimes make believe. I was going to say make believe, but sometimes it is make believe. And again, that you too, and more importantly, that leaders can look like me and look like you, and it doesn't always have to be this picture of what a leader is or what they could be. If I had more time, I was going to get into my listener letter, but you know, the listener letter, the time is just so short. Part of my podcast is a highlights reel where I would kind of talk about some highlight that some great educational leader did. That educational leader today is going to be me. This comes from a prompt because you all got me thinking about prompts, and I can't stop writing and thinking about prompts. But I'll give credit to where it's due. Dr. William Franklin out of Cal State Dominguez Hills essentially said, in 2 years' time, if we were to play a YouTube highlights reel video of you about students and staff and folks talking about you, what would that be? And I had to sit with that because I'm like, I live in the deficit. What are you talking about, a highlight reel? It's like America's Most Wanted if you see me, right? Laugh, everyone. But seriously, in the last 10 seconds, the highlight reel that I was able to come up with was a student saying 2 years from now, in November 2025, someone is saying, thank you, Dennis. You've helped me navigate this wild community college. You fed me. You helped me feel seen. You showed you cared. Thank you for picking up the phone, talking to me on the bus stop, offering me that job, and believing in me. And so I think that would be my new highlights reel, which I would translate for class. What is your legacy going to be? I had to sit with that, obviously, but that is my answer. In just 2 years' time, I hope somebody would say those wonderful words about me, that I'm doing the work. Not to get the recognition or the highlight reel, but I do not think we ever think, like, what is our highlight reel going to be? And what would people say? So that is my time. That has been another episode of the Leadership Educator Podcast. I went 1 minute over, so stop it. But this has been fun. Thanks for hanging with me, and I'll see you in class soon. I'm out.